herbaceous plants. So does anybody have any idea of what a herbaceous plant is? You guys can talk throughout this. It's not going to bother me. So I'm pretty informal and ask a lot of questions. So if you think you have an idea of what a herbaceous plant might be, go ahead and chime in.
One that's primarily green, not a non-woody plant.
They're primarily green with non-woody stems. That's right. Good job, Sandra. So herbaceous plants generally die back to the ground each year, and they don't form woody stems. So that's right. You get bonus points if you can tell me what the plants are along the way. Anybody know what this plant is?
Euchera?
Euchera or coral bells. That's correct.
I was going to say coral bells.
They generally don't do that well here, but it is a good example of a herbaceous plant. So herbaceous plants generally fall into one of three categories. They're either annuals, meaning that they complete their life cycle in one growing season, or they're biennials, meaning that they grow green growth the first year, and then they generally bloom and set seed the next year. Or they're perennials. They come up and they produce growth, and then when winter comes, they die back to the ground, but then when spring comes, they come back up again. So they generally take several growing seasons to complete their life cycle. Anybody know what this plant is?
Bluebells.
It's a Texas bluebell. You're right. They can fall into multiple flowering habits. They can have really big flowers, and those would be called a grandiflora. They could have lots of flowers that are smaller, and those would be called multiflora. Or they could fall somewhere in between and have an abundance of flowers that are somewhat large but not necessarily big, and those would be called floribunda. And then they could have lots of teeny tiny little flowers, and those would be called milliflora. All right, and what is this plant?
Lobelia?
It's lobelia. That's correct. One of my favorite plants. Now we're going to talk a little bit about flower structure. Flowers are generally divided into groups by their inflorescence, or how the flowers are arranged on the stems. And these help to identify what family the flowers come from. Plants in the same family often have similar inflorescences to one another. So let me see. This is going to, well, I don't know. I don't know whether to stop and try to find the other things or not. Let me see if I can do that. This works better when you're doing it live before a group. I may have to just go through the PowerPoints and, yes. Okay, that's not gonna work that way. Okay, let's just go ahead and progress through this PowerPoint. And then I'll try to show you stuff, okay? Let's see here. I gotta find where I was at. Okay, is that back on for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so flower structure. Flowers can be either what we call complete, or they can be incomplete. If it's a complete flower, it has both. It has all of the male flower parts and all of the female flower parts. So a complete flower would have sepals, petals, all of the stamen parts, and all of the pistil parts. The stamen, by the way, are the male parts, and the pistils are the female parts. So here is a picture of a complete flower. You have the stigma, style, and the ovary. The ovary includes the ovules. Those are what we would call the pistil, which is the female. And then we have the stamens, which are made up of the anthers, the filament, and that are the parts of the male flower. Now, you have these little green leaves at the bottom. Think about a rose, how they have those little green sepals at the bottom, and then the connecting part of the flower stem that connects it to the main stem is called the pedicel. So in this picture, you have an incomplete flower, and it's missing one or more of the following. Either it's missing the sepals, the petals, the stamen, or the pistils. Can anybody look at this imperfect flower and tell me what parts it's missing?
Anthers and so forth. Male part.
It's missing the male parts, that's right. So this would be an incomplete flower. Now, sometimes you have incomplete flowers that are on the same plant. You have male incomplete flowers and female incomplete flowers. Sometimes they just say you have male flowers and female flowers, but they're on the same plant. And that's when you get into the terms monoecious and dioecious. We don't really need to go into those too much right now, though. So flower structure, a perfect flower has all its parts. It's not only complete, but it's said to be perfect. So this would be a complete perfect flower. They're bisexual, having both the male and the female parts in the same flower. So you can easily see that this one has multiple stamen, and then it has the stigma style and the ovary. So this is common. What would be an advantage of it having multiple stamen?
More opportunity to fertilize.
Yes, it would have more pollen. On the tips of these is where you would find the pollen on the anthers. And so that would provide more pollen and give it a greater chance of fertilization. That's correct. So here's an example of an imperfect flower, and these are both imperfect flowers. This is a imperfect flower. What parts is it missing?
Male parts.
The male
Male.
parts. This is an imperfect flower, and it's missing the
Female.
female parts. Let's talk a little bit about flower shapes. I had a wonderful handout that I was going to show you, but I can't actually get to it right now because it doesn't seem to be working that well to come in and out of this PowerPoint. So I'm just going to continue as PowerPoint. So you have a flower shape that's called a campanulate, which means that it's bell-shaped. You have a flower shape called coroniform, meaning that the flower is crown-shaped. You have one that's called cruciform or cross-shaped. Cuculate, meaning that it's hooded. We don't see too many hooded flowers, but occasionally you do. One that comes to mind is a snapdragon. There are also some orchids that are hooded. Then you have papuliform, which is cup-shaped. You have flowers that are double, meaning that they have one or two extra sets of petals. Carnations would be like that. You have funnel form, which means the flowers are funnel shaped. You have inflated, which would be bladder shaped. Bladderwort comes to mind when you think about that. You have labiate, meaning that the petals appear like lips. Then you have ligulate or strap-like. Papilionoid, which means they're butterfly shaped. Reflexed, where the petals are bent backwards. Saccate, meaning that they're like a slipper orchid. Salverform, where the tubes have flat lobes. Spurred, like a larkspur, or can you think of another flower that has spurs? Think about what Colorado is famous for. What flower?
Columbine.
Columbines, yes. And then you have stellate, which is star-shaped. Tubular, meaning tube-shaped. Urceolate, which is urn-shaped. These are all available from the University of Kentucky Horticulture. I don't know if this will actually work or not. Let's see if it opens up. No. Okay. Now I gotta go back to where I was. Okay, that side didn't want to work. Doesn't seem to want to play now. Okay, give me just a second. Guess I know not to do that again, huh? Okay, resume slideshow. Okay, so inflorescences, the arrangement of the flowers on the flowering stem. The typical parts of inflorescence include the peduncle, the pedicels, the bracts, and the bractlets. So there's the peduncle. These are the pedicels, the bracts. The peduncle is the stalk holding up the flower or supporting the inflorescence. The pedicels are the stalk supporting each flower in the inflorescence, and the bracts are the modified leaf-like structures that are just below an inflorescence. Here are some different inflorescence types. You have solitary. Here you have a spike, a raceme, an umbel. Can anybody think of a family where you see lots of umbel flowers?
Queen Anne's lace.
Queen Anne's lace, and that's out of the family that you see carrots and all that kind of stuff, so that's correct. Then you have corum, a panicle, a cyme. Then you have capitulum. Don't ask me what has capitulum flowers because I don't know. We see lots of spadix flowers in tropicals. One that comes to mind immediately is a spathiphyllum or a peace lily. Then you have catkins. We see these on lots of trees. You have thrice, verticillester, spikelet, which is like lily of the valley, and cyatheum. Now, you learned earlier from Dr. Womack about vascular systems. Well, a herbaceous stem is going to be similar to this. It's going to have vascular bundles in each of these tiny little tubes, as opposed to that forms a woody stem where it has rings where it's grown each year and it's added on an extra ring for every year or every growing season. And those are woody. You can get lots of different variations in hardiness depending upon the different plants and depending upon where you live. So it all depends on the winter temperatures, the summer temperatures. We all know, they talk a lot about the USDA hardiness zones, but they don't talk too much about the heat zones. We're in one of those areas where a lot of what we can grow depends upon how hot our summers get. We actually rival areas like Tucson, Arizona for our summer temperatures if you factor in the heat index. And you guys know that because quite a bit of the months of June, July, and August, we had heat index warnings where our heat indexes were above 109. So that rivals us with desert-like temperatures. And then chilling hours. Does anybody have any idea what the term chilling hours refers to?
How many hours of freezing temperatures we get?
How many hours below 45 degrees that you stay? And then it's also affected, they have figured out now it's affected by warm days during the winter as well. So it's almost like an addition subtraction system. Each time that you have a warm day, it pulls away from your chill hours. How many chill hours do you think we actually get in our neck of the woods?
3.
We get between 200 and 300 generally. This last winter, we barely made it to 200. So, and that affects things that have to have a chilling time during the winter in order for them to produce and grow normally the following year. Things that come to mind, tulips. Tulips don't perform well if they don't get adequate chilling. In fact, if they're going to force tulips to bloom, they generally put them in a cooler and subject them to the chilling hours that they need, and they bring them out and they bloom. Other things that come to mind are fruit trees. They have to have, most fruit trees have to have at least 400 to 600 chilling hours. They have been hybridizing fruit trees, though, that perform well at 300 hours. So if you're looking for fruit crops, for fruit trees, look for ones that say they have a low chilling requirement. And then climate also comes into mind. That refers to how the weather conditions or the climatic conditions are in your area. And in our area, they vary greatly. Some years we almost mimic normal weather patterns and seasonal changes, and some years it's like we have almost none. We also have microclimates. You could say that it's quite different in Corpus Christi as opposed to out on the island. They have a great deal of wind, they have salt spray, they have things that we don't necessarily get as much of here in Corpus. So here's a look at the U.S. hardiness zone. You'll notice that the tip of Texas lines up with the tip of Florida, so that's zone 10. Then we have our area all the way up to the Beaumont area, most of southern Louisiana and most of Florida, and that's zone 9. We actually, in Corpus Christi, most of Corpus Christi is in zone 9B, meaning that we might see 1 to 2 days of freezing weather a year, and that's about it. Last year, I don't think we recorded a single freezing day.
Mm-mm.
And generally, if we do have a freeze, it's going to be for just a matter of hours, not for any significant amount of time. Now, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we had 2 freezing days in a row where both days we hit below freezing, and it was fairly significant. We had quite a bit of damage to tropical plants in Nueces County from that freeze. We will also have a very significant freeze about every 15 years here, where we are going to go down into the 25 to 26 degree range. And that's the reason why you don't see avocado groves here. Back in the 80s, they had some fairly significant plantings of tropical fruits such as avocados and mangoes and guava, and we had some pretty severe freezes in the 80s, and it knocked out all of those. So now people grow them as a hobby crop, but there are no significant groupings of those. It's also the reason why you don't see citrus groves in this area, because you can't save the citrus when you have freezes like that. So it makes it where the tree will probably survive, but the crops won't, and so they're not viewed as a substantive type of crop for this area. In other words, the farmers can't make enough money on a consistent basis to warrant spending the money to plant the acreage. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but it shows the average annual, the low temperatures for the zones. And you can see that we fall into the pink, and that's 25 to 30 degrees is generally the range that we're going to get into each winter. I actually pulled it up a little bit closer for you. So notice that most of Nueces County is pink, which is zone 9B, and that's 25 to 30 degrees. And then part of it is zone 9A, which is 20 to 25 degrees. So areas that would be 9A would be Bishop, Robstown, all the way up to almost Lake Corpus Christi. Now, I brought up heat tolerance, that Nueces County has anywhere from 120 to 150 days where the temperature reaches at least 86 degrees. So if you're thinking about 365 days, that means that we have almost half of the year where we reach at least 86 degrees. And that's pretty severe, pretty significant. And that you can see that we're right in that area between where we hit 121 to 150 and it reaches 151 to 180 days. Now, while we're on this map, go ahead and take a look at other places in the country that have similar conditions to us. You'll notice that most of Arizona, parts of the Southwest in California, parts of the Southwest in Nevada, and then places in Florida have very similar heat conditions as we do. You might also look at Hawaii. Most people think of Hawaii as being hot, but it actually has spots that get pretty cold in the wintertime. And then it has spots that stay just in the middle. So has anybody ever lived in Hawaii?
I have.
It generally doesn't get just all that hot, does it?
Nope, pretty much around 80 degrees every day, all year.
And do you know the reason for that?
The governor paid a lot of money to Mother Nature.
It's the ocean currents that are around the islands. They actually help to buffer the temperatures. So it's not that it's not far enough south to get hot. It's just that the ocean currents buffer the temperatures and keep it cool.
I do know that a lot of people make the mistake of trying to garden in Hawaii like they would on the mainland United States, and you just can't grow the same stuff.
They do that here as well. They are used to, let's say that you lived in North Texas or even someplace like Nebraska. The normal would be to come out, and as soon as your last freeze date is over, which is probably going to be in April or May, you plant your garden, and your vegetable garden grows through the spring and the summer, and then you replant in the fall. Well, we all know here you jump on it in late January, early February, and as soon as our temperatures hit above 85 degrees during the day, your spring garden is generally about over. So summer here is not a growing season, except for okra. Okra likes it here all during the summer.
Yeah, it took me a couple years and a lot of dead plants to figure that one out.
Yeah, and our folks that come down from the north, it's really tough on them to figure it out. But once you figure it out, you figure out, hey, I can grow things in the spring, I can grow things in the fall, and I can grow things most of the winter. As long as you're willing to give it a little bit of protection in those few days that we actually get cold. Good soil is important. Unfortunately, Nueces County is predominantly clay soil. People make the mistake of thinking that clay soil is bad, though, because it gets hard. However, clay soil is very fertile. It has lots of nutrients in it. We do have a few pockets of loam and sandy soils in Flower Bluff and the island. We have some loam soils out near the airport. So there are a few patches of really good soil in the county, but most of the county is Victoria clay. And it's one of those things, if you're used to gardening in the ground, you have to figure out that containers and raised beds are generally a lot easier to deal with than trying to dig in the clay soil. What can you do to try to improve clay soil?
Amend it.
Amend it with organic matter. So that's the answer to almost every question down here. What do I do for sandy soils? Add organic matter. What do I do for clay soils? Add organic matter. So the answer is add organic matter. You can't go wrong by adding organic matter to almost any soil. Most of us have decided that we like raised beds and containers better than trying to deal with this hard soil though. When you're purchasing plants, it's always good to look for stocky, sturdy plants. Is it a mistake to purchase from the big box stores?
It can be.
It can be, but you can also do a good job if you know what you're looking for. The key there is to learn what plants do well in our area and to look for those when they first come in at the big box stores, and you can find things at that actually do well here. The problem is the big box stores divide the U.S. into regions, And so they divide us into the same region as a lot of the parts of the South. And so you've got places like Tennessee and Kentucky and Florida and Alabama and Louisiana, and they group it all into one area, and they ship the same types of plants to all those areas. And so that can be a problem. But if you learn what your plants are, then you can do really well by and get things at a pretty good price. The other thing to do would be to shop your local nurseries. Your local nurseries do a great job here of purchasing plants that do well in your area. The prices sometimes can be a little bit more steep though, and you can spend quite a significant amount more money by purchasing at local nurseries, but it's always good to support your local nurseries as well. You want to make sure that you check your plants for insects and diseases. A lot of people like to shop the discount rack. It's not always a bad thing, but you also sometimes can bring diseases and insects into your garden by doing that. So grab stuff that's still in good shape on the discount rack, but look for diseases and insects. If plants are spindly, they're generally not going to do well. There are some plants that you'll learn that you can cut back and you can get them to come back. And one thing that I always tell people is be sure that you're ready to plant when you purchase plants. We've all made the mistake of going out and we see things that are really beautiful at the nursery and we go ahead and purchase them and we haven't even got our beds ready. We're not ready to plant, and they come home and they sit and they sit and they sit. I've killed stuff that way. I'm sure other people have as well. And then it never hurts to harden stuff off. In this area, one of the big no-nos is to take plants that have come from a nice, wonderful environment like a greenhouse and to plop them right out into the sun. It's really tough on them. So you might want to put them on a shaded patio and ease them out into the sun so that they don't go into shock as easily. Some things to remember: transplants need the equivalent of 1 to 2 inches of rain each week until they're established. You might have to stalk some of your taller transplants, and you will have problems with insects and diseases, but as long as you understand integrated pest management practices, you can do a good job. How many people have a pretty basic understanding of IPM at this point?
Sort of.
Sort of. The key there is to monitor. Decide how much you're willing to put up with before you ever plant. I can put up with quite a few insects before I decide to get the insecticide out. And then I'm always good at trying cultural practices. I'm good at trying simple things like soapy water. I'm good at taking 2 sponges and wiping the plants down and removing stuff that way. We talk about the 2 brick method, where you squish stuff between 2 rocks. So there are lots of things that you can do before you ever get to the point of spraying. Now, does that mean that sometimes you're not going to get influx of insects and they give you no choice but to spray? Sometimes they do that, and you're forced to have to get out the insecticide. But most of the time, you can try other things. Beneficial insects are something that you can order in. You can go online and find them easily. They arrive at your house in good shape and you can release them out. We have lots of good beneficial insects in this area that do a great job most of the time. If you're willing to just wait a few days and let them show up, the ladybugs and the lacewings will show up and they'll begin to eat the things that you were worried about. And then you need to fertilize, especially if you're growing in pots or in raised containers. You need to come up with some fertilization plan. I like to use natural fertilizers if all possible. I also like things like microencapsulated fertilizers. Those are gelatin balls and they have the fertilizer inside of them, and when you water, it flushes a little bit of the fertilizer out. Slow release fertilizers are preferable over quick release fertilizers. However, if you have plants that you've bought and they're in desperate need of fertilizer, giving them a dose of quick fertilizer, quick release fertilizer is always a good thing. Preparation is always the key. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Have a plan, know what you're going to be doing before you start. Have your beds ready to go before you purchase your plants. And do your homework. Know what grows in your area. And then know the planting dates and the seasons for your area. And it's okay to try new things. You might actually be successful with something that somebody said won't work here. And maybe the reason that it won't, that they haven't had good luck trying it here is because they're trying to grow it like they grew it in another state or somewhere else. And here you have to try it in either the fall or the spring instead of the summer. Okay, do you have any questions before we move on?
Yes, Kevin, what does IPM mean?
IPM stands for Integrated Pest Management. It refers to a series of steps that you follow before you ever get to pesticides. Some of the steps are mechanically removing the insects. The first step would be to do absolutely nothing. You just leave them alone and wait for the beneficials to show up. Another step would be mechanically removing them. You could take a bucket of soapy water out there and pick them off and drown them in the soapy water. You could get a couple of sponges and wipe the plants down and remove the insects that way. You can plant companion plants that the insects are attracted to those plants instead of the plants that you don't want them on. And then you gradually work your way towards the last thing on the list, which would be to get out the chemicals and spray. So it's a series of steps, trying other things before you get to the point of actually using harsh chemicals.
Yes, we were taught that. I just didn't remember what it meant.
The main thing is try to be environmentally friendly when at all possible.
Okay, I have one more question.
All right, go ahead.
In flower structure, there was incomplete. Was there a complete one?
There is a complete flower has both the male and the female plant parts. It has all of them. It can only be called a complete flower if it has the entire set of female and the entire set of male flower parts.
Okay, you said incomplete, perfect, and imperfect. So is complete perfect?
Complete is perfect, yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, let's talk a little bit about annuals. Did that come up?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not by any means all the annual plants that you'll ever see, but it's some of the more common ones. So annual plants are plants that complete their growing cycle in one season. Some people like to say years, but down here, who knows what that means? You know, we have annuals that have a tendency to perennialize here, even though they're not really truly annuals. If you think about how long it takes for them to complete their life cycle, then you have a better understanding if they're an annual or a perennial. An example of that would be periwinkle. Periwinkle completes its entire life cycle in one growing season, but sometimes we don't have harsh enough winters to kill off the existing plants, and they'll complete another life cycle when the spring gets there. Does that mean that they're a perennial? Not really. They're really still just an annual that overwinters here. Anybody know this plant?
Blue days. I don't know the botanical name. It's called blue days.
It's blue days, or it's also called evolvulus. Okay, annual plants complete their life cycle in one growing season. Here's a petunia. That's a great example of an annual. They're adaptable to a wide range of conditions and have many uses. There are lots of annual flowers that are can be used as cut flowers. They're great for containers. They're great for hanging baskets. They can be used in nature gardens, and there are lots of annuals that are very fragrant. Generally speaking, they must be replanted each year. Now, I remember working in the nursery and people would come in and say, I only want perennials because I don't want to have to replant each year. The problem with perennials is that they generally don't produce the amount of color that annual plants do. If you think about it, an annual is trying to get pollinated. It's trying to get to the point where it is fertilized and where it does everything it needs to do so that it continues its species. Well, it's going to put out pretty magnificent flowers if it has to do that all in one growing season. So the key here is to combine the two and to the point that you have a really nice display of color, but you have flowers that come back as well so that you don't have to completely replant the entire bed every single year. Anybody know what these flowers are?
Leosa,
They're celosia.
celosia.
Celosia. Some people call them coxcomb. This is really not the one that is coxcomb, but they're celosia.
Any amaranth is just fancy pigweed.
Yes, it is.
No.
Okay, there's two types of annuals. There are annuals that are very tender. It doesn't take much of a frost to injure them or kill them. Some examples would be ageratum, celosia, impatiens, nasturtiums, cleome, or zinnia. Some people say cleome. And then there are annuals that are very hardy, and they survive light frost without much of a problem. Some examples of those would be aster, cornflower, cosmos, pansy, marigolds, petunias, straw flowers, and sweet alyssum. What can you tell me about the list that I just gave you? What do they all have in common, besides the fact that they're hardy annuals?
They all seed themselves.
Yeah, they do, but most annuals set seed. When do we grow a lot of these?
Winter and spring.
Yes, and they're growing in cooler times of the year, so they're used to having to deal with some colder weather. So that's probably the reason nature just set them up so that they can deal with some of this cold weather and survive. Here are some other common annuals. What is this one?
Geranium.
A geranium. These?
Impatience.
Nope, almost. They look like impatiens, but look at the leaves.
Oh,
Vicas.
Begonia.
No,
no,
they're not.
Vincas, aren't they?
They're vinca, yes.
Vincas.
They're periwinkles. Then we have
purslane.
purslane, and this one?
Alyssum.
Alyssum, sweet alyssum, yes. Here we have floss flower. We're used to seeing it in this kind of blue. What native plant do we have here that closely resembles floss flower?
That Padre Island flowers.
We have all the mist flowers here, the Greg's mist, the Padre Island mist flower that we see growing along the roadways and stuff closely resemble this. Did you know they come in different shades though?
No,
So they're pretty cool.
they are.
We're not going to spend any time going over these, so I'm going to skip these slides. Then we have alyssum. One of the cool things about alyssum is it's fragrant. Some people like the way it smells and other people don't like the way it smells. It kind of smells like sorghum. Do you guys know what sorghum is?
Yeah, but I never smelled it.
It kind of has a syrupy smell to it.
Mm.
Then we have begonias. Look at all the different kinds of begonias. We're used to seeing wax begonias, which are these, but we have lots of different other kinds of begonias too. We have Rex begonias, we have angel wing begonias, we have tuberous begonias. So there are lots of different kinds of begonias, and they're all annuals. Here are celosia. Here's the one that people normally call coxcomb. And Beth pointed out that they're all amaranths. So they're all out of the amaranth family. And what other plant did you say is out of the amaranth family, Beth?
Pigweed. I'm really allergic.
Pigweed. So a lot of the things that make people sneeze come out of the amaranth family. Then we have coleus. They have come out with some really cool different species of coleus in the last few years. You're seeing all different kinds. Coleus are cool because you can reproduce them through cuttings easily. They're great plants for shade or for shady areas, but they also do well in partial sun. They won't put up with afternoon sun though. We have verbena. Verbena is often called a cut flower for florist verbena. So these are great. There are lots of different kinds of verbena as well. You have some that are trailing, some that are that will fill a bed like a ground cover. So they're terrific. Then you have geraniums. You have quite a few different kinds of geraniums too. What's one of the geraniums that we use for mosquito repellent?
Citronella.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Citronella.
Citronella. So, and then there's like Martha Washington. There's also ivy leaf geranium. So lots of different kinds of geraniums as well. Here we have impatiens. Here's your traditional normal impatiens. And then we have different kinds of impatiens as well, New Guinea impatiens. So these are great. These are very useful in shady areas. And they actually do pretty well down here. I don't see a whole lot of them being grown here, but I've tried them out in my own beds and they seem to do just fine. They are water hogs, I will say that. So if you're if your garden is one of those where you're trying to get by with a minimal amount of water, they're probably not a great choice for that. You'd be better off to use begonias.
People discontinued for a few years because of a disease. I think they'll come back.
Probably. Here are some different kinds of lobelia. They become generally blue. There is kind of a purpley one also, and I've seen them in white as well. They're terrific trailers, but they will not put up with the summer heat here. So if you want to use lobelia, put them in the spring or put them in the fall, but they won't put up with the summer heat here. Marigolds. Marigolds are a great choice for this area, with the exception of one thing. What can you tell me about marigolds? What insect targets marigolds?
Spider mites.
Spider mites. So you have to work aggressively to keep the spider mites off of them. What is one simple thing that you can do to fight against spider mites without having to use chemicals?
You just spray them with water, right?
Yeah, you can just hose them down. You want to do that early morning though, so the plant has a chance to dry out. Yeah, just the use of a light mist of water works really well to try to keep the spider mites in check on marigolds. But other than that, they put up with the heat very well. They come in lots of different sizes. There are football mum size marigolds. Those are your Africans. And then there's lots of different smaller ones as well. They're generally in shades of yellow, red, or orange. Pansies. Anybody try to grow pansies here?
I grow them in the wintertime.
If I were growing pansies here, I'd wait until you got the first really good cold spell, and then I'd put them in the ground, and then you'll probably have them until May when it starts getting really hot. They'll put up with about 80 to 85 degrees, and after that, they fade out really fast. But they're a very good choice for that fall to winter garden here. Johnny Jump Ups. Anybody ever heard of those?
Yep, I love them.
Yep.
Or violas. So you're seeing some really small violas or pansies that are being introduced on the market right now, and they're really cool. They're coming in a lot of shades instead of these large flowering ones that we all grew up with that we were used to. I can remember walking across the campus in Lubbock when it was 15 degrees outside and the pansies were just happy as all get out. They were out there growing. It's weird to me that they named them pansies because pansy sounds like something that's very tender. Well, these are definitely not tender. They're one of the toughest flowers around. Petunias. Petunias are used very extensively. I'm seeing people going back to some of their, trying to think what the term is, some of their grandmother's petunias. It's not heritage. Somebody help me out with the word for old style plants. Heirloom, there you go. I'm seeing a lot of the heirloom type petunias that are being grown and they reseed. Uh-oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. And so they're a good choice. They like water too, though, but they're still a good choice for lots of color. Portulaca. Portulaca makes great hanging baskets here. It's very tolerant of the hot, dry weather that we can have in the summer. What's one of the problems with portulaca?
I don't have a problem growing them. They need a little bit more water than other succulents do.
They do, and they can have fungal infections occasionally. And then the thing I was thinking of is that they reseed easily, and the plants that come up as a result of the seed don't look like the parent plants. So they come up and then we have to try to get them out of our flower beds and stuff. So they're very prolific seeders. Snapdragon. Snapdragon's a great choice here for the fall, the winter, and the spring, but they won't put up with the summer heat. Do you guys know why they call them snapdragons?
You squeeze them and they go rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, they have this little compartment here, and you can pull the bottom compartment down, and it opens it up like a mouth, and it looks like they have two little teeth. So you let it go, and they snap shut. Snapdragons are wonderful. They make excellent cut flowers as well. And then Vinca. Vinca, one of the problems we have with it is that they're prone to fungal infections. So you have to make sure that you learn how to water them properly to try to avoid that. But they're coming out with some varieties now that are resistant to fungus infections. So they're a great choice for here. And they generally put up with our summer heat pretty well. And then zinnias. What's one of the problems with zinnias in our area?
I have found mine getting mildewy.
They get powdered mildew very easy. The key to zinnias is water from the bottom. So put a bubbler or put a soaker hose down there and water them from the bottom. Otherwise, you'll end up with powdered mildew. If you learn to water that way, though, they're generally very successful here. Zinnias come in lots of different styles, from really large flowers to smaller flowers. You're seeing some really tiny, small species that they're putting out on the market right now that do really well here and don't seem to be as prone to the fungal infections. And the butterflies love zinnias. And so do the hummingbirds, by the way. Okay, any questions?
Is this all going to be in the calendar so we can look at these later?
We can put them in the calendar, I suppose, can't we, Vince?
The first one's already there.
Okay. I shared them with Vince earlier today, so I think that he has probably shared them with all of you. Okay. Are we taking a break, or?
I have the one PowerPoint that you sent me, which was the herbaceous,
Herbaceous.
but I didn't have the herbaceous plants.
I
But
thought I thought I sent you the entire folder.
Let me
No,
look.
it's okay. Are we taking a break, Vince?
You can.
Do y'all need a break?
No, I don't need a break.
You don't
No.
need a break. Okay, then let's go ahead. Let me look at the chat. I see something going on in the chat. It says I put pansies in pots where my lilies are dormant. Got sick of my neighbors asking why I had pots of dirt. That's funny. All right. Let me move on. Let's see. Let's look at some perennials if I can find them. This is probably all stuff that you guys are used to already, right? Okay, so perennial plants are still herbaceous plants, but they come back up even after going through cold winter. So that's the biggest difference. Annual plants freeze to the ground and they're done. You have to replant them the next year. Perennial plants freeze to the ground, but they generally come back up from the root system the following year. So here's some examples of some common perennials. Here is a Texas native, which is?
Blanket flower.
It's a gaillardia or a blanket flower. That's correct. Here are some common perennials that we see. Here we have daylilies. This one is
Lantana.
lantana. Some people get all excited about lantana and say don't plant them because they say that they're invasive, or make sure that you only plant the native ones here. So I can kind of understand that. But I don't see them as invasive in our area. They may be invasive in other parts of the state, but we don't have the amount of rainfall to make them invasive here. Here we have
That's a rain lily. That's just the
it's a
species
rain lily.
mostly familiar with. There are 3 species, and most people have the white, not the yellow or the pink.
Yeah, these are rain lilies for sure. And this one is what, Beth?
Shrimp plant.
A shrimp plant, that's right. So they're all great. Here is a plant that you normally see in the fall, and this is an aster. There are, they come in pinks as well. They're very hardy. You have all different kinds of sages. I put in a salvia greggii or an autumn sage here, but there are lots of different kinds of sages, and all of them, as far as I know, do well here in our area. So feel free when you see the sages at the store to, they don't always look wonderful. They don't always show a lot of color when they're in the packs at the stores, but they are tremendous once you get them in the ground and get them going. I can't think of many plants that do better and that put off more color than what the sages do. Anybody have any stories about sage?
I had a multi-pack of wildflowers from the Johnson Center, and there was this one sage that came up that I'm like, what the heck is this thing? Because it was red like the Greggy and the Rio Grande Scarlet, but it has a different, it's straight up and it's furry, and it's just, it took me forever to ID it. It's Texas mountain sage, but it was like 4 or 5 years I had this thing before I could identify it. Now it's propagating itself, so I have a couple of them for the sale, along with a couple other types.
Maybe you can share them with us. All right, cool. So that's sage. We see sages in blues a lot of times. So a lot of sages come in purples and blues. Coreopsis is one of my favorite flowers. Super easy to grow. It reseeds very easily. And provides color the entire summer. So it's not one of those perennials. A lot of your times your perennials will produce a flush of color, and then they stop showing color, and you have to figure out other ways to have color in the bed. But coreops is not like that. Now, I have found if you want them to keep producing color, you need to deadhead them. Go out there and remove the spent flowers, and they'll just keep producing flower after flower after flower. Lots of different kinds of coreopsis as well. Daylilies. Daylilies are, and I misspelled it, should be hemerocallis, not herocallis. Daylilies are one of your old standby plants. A lot of us probably remember the old orange tiger lilies. And then there are thousands of different species of daylilies that have been hybridized and they're on the market now. So they generally do well and are a great choice. Cannas. Do cannas do well here?
Yes.
Yes, they're very easy to grow here, and you have no problem. They come all the way from dwarfs all the way up to full size. So cannas can get up to 6 to 8 feet in some cases down here, or you can find the dwarfs that only get 2 to 3 feet tall. They generally are in pinks, reds, oranges, and yellows. Has anybody seen any colors other than those? Okay. And then here's Indian blanket, which is Gaillardia. A great choice for this area. Here is another sage. This is mealy cup sage, or I've seen it called Victorian salvia, Salvia farinaceae. These are terrific here. I have great luck with them. Super easy. The butterflies and the hummingbirds love them. I don't think you can go wrong with them. Here's Mexican mint marigold. Grown most of the time as an herb here, but the flowers are very nice on it as well. So I think it's a great choice for here as well. Oxeye daisy is a type of chrysanthemum. This is a good fall plant here when you're going to see most of the color on them. They resemble Shasta daisies. If you grew up growing Shasta daisies, they kind of look like them, but they are actually a chrysanthemum. Anybody grow chrysanthemums here?
I do.
Do you have any special tips for people trying to grow chrysanthemums in this area?
You just have to keep deadheading them.
Keep deadheading them. I've noticed that they produce flush after flush after flush of flowers here.
They do. They do. I have some, I don't have them right now. I had some that lasted, maybe 4 or 5 years. They just would come back every year, but like the coreopsis, you've just got to deadhead them constantly.
Make sure you have the tropical chrysanthemum and don't overwater them. I had one that was doing beautifully for a couple of years and then it rotted out.
Yeah, but they generally do okay here. I'm surprised. They're normally a plant that's sold as a fall plant. People put them in the ground, and a lot of times they freeze out in the wintertime. Here, you can put them in the ground, and they generally will come up year after year. They can struggle sometimes with our summer heat here, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's if you buy the hardy. If you buy the tropical, they love the heat.
Yeah. We don't see them. We don't see the hardy ones sold, the tropical ones sold in our local stores very often, though, do we?
They sell them in the florist department instead of in the nursery department. That's
All right,
the trick.
that's good information to know. Here we have some different kinds of mints. You have anywhere from peppermint to spearmint to there's even a chocolate mint. Then you have pineapple mints. Catnip is actually a type of mint. Most of the mints do well here without any problem. You do have to cut them back from time to time if you want to keep them full, though, because if you don't cut them back, they'll get tall and spindly and unsightly. I have pretty good luck growing them all the way from morning sun to mostly afternoon sun, but I tend to do best with them when I have them shaded in the afternoon. Anybody else have tips on growing mint?
They're thirsty.
They do like water. If you have an area where the air conditioner drips, it's a great area to plant mint. They like it. Rain lilies.
And catnip needs sun.
I'm sorry, what?
And catnip needs sun.
Oh, catnip needs sun. Yes, they won't do in complete shade. They have to have at least a half a day of sun. Rain lilies actually do very well here. It's amazing, but they do like quite a bit of water as well. We have some really nice rain lilies down at the Xeriscape garden, and they make it on the same watering schedule that the rest of the Xeriscape plants make it on. So don't be fooled to thinking that they have to be watered heavily, because they actually bloom and do pretty well with inch or less a week. Here's shrimp plant. There's quite a few different colors of shrimp plant. You've got yellows, oranges, kind of browns, but they all do well in our area. I do notice that they do good with a good haircut from time to time. And then lantana species. Is there anybody who is opposed to the different lantana species here that has anything they want to say about lantana?
I love lantana. They're one of the few flowers that will take lots and lots of sun. And once they're established, they're pretty drought tolerant.
They need a good haircut from time to time too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that there's something that they said about trying to plant the native lantana because there was this idea that the butterflies would stay too long if the lantanas from the other areas were blooming, and that the native lantanas only bloomed at a certain time and then the butterflies went on. I think they decided butterflies are actually pretty smart and that they don't get fooled staying around any longer than they're supposed to. So
Some of the golden hybrids, like the really prolific golden hybrids that are wonderful for xeriscape, don't actually benefit the butterflies. Like, they don't really prefer them. So they're great
All
for
right.
parking lots, but if you're trying to plant a butterfly garden, stick to the native or the purple.
All right. I know regardless of what lantana I plant, it's always full of butterflies. So, but yes, I can see why the native folks would want you to plant the native species of it. I just like the pink, Beth. I can't help it. The pink and yellow has always been my favorite. Okay,
Two.
go ahead.
Just agreeing.
Yeah, the Turk's cap is a terrific plant for here. It does well on a minimal amount of water. Of course, they look better if you give them extra supplemental waterings, but they're very hardy here, and I see them all over town. So even in parts of town where it's clear that there's not a whole lot of attention being paid to them, they seem to be there year after year after year. So once established, they're extremely hardy. Notice that that the name is Malvaviscus, meaning that they come out of the Malvaceae family. There are what tropical plants do you notice that they closely resemble?
Hibiscus?
Hibiscus. It's also noted that plants like cotton come out of that family. So here is a trailing verbena. Like I said, verbenas are a great choice. We used to grow sand verbena and had great luck with them putting up with the heat. So they're a good choice. Here's yarrow. I don't know if anybody is successful with yarrow here. Has anybody tried yarrow?
Yes, I like yarrow, and it's very successful.
Very good. They come in whites and pinks, if I remember right.
I have one
Yellow too.
Yellow also.
all
yes.
over.
So they're cool. All right. Any questions before we move on? Here we have something in the chat. It says only stray cats hear mama pregnant again. I guess that was Beth. Let's see here. Okay, we're going to finish up by playing a game if I can find it. We're going to play Jeopardy. Are y'all down for Jeopardy?
Sure.
And then we're done for the night. So, I don't know why it's asking me that. And then if you get a chance, look at the handouts. I don't know, Vince, if you got the whole folder or not. If I need to resend it, I will. Okay, so this is
something else in chat.
There's something else in the chat?
No, I was responding to something else in chat. That's why I was saying about cats. Someone
Okay.
said that lilies are bad for cats, and I was saying I don't have any.
All right. So here's Jeopardy. Does everybody see the Jeopardy board?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let's see if we
Yes,
get
we
music
do.
or not. Are you getting music?
No.
No.
No music yet.
All right. So your categories today are bulbs and corms and tubers, grasses, Texas natives, holidays, and herbs. Are y'all okay if I just start and go? Anybody can chime in with the answer, okay? Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, so bulbs, corms, and tubers. This spring bulb originally was from Holland, usually doesn't get enough chilling hours in Nueces County.
Tulip.
What is
Tulips.
tulip?
Let's see if you're right. What is a tulip? You guys are so good. Second one, spring bulb, one of the first to bloom, bright yellow,
Daffodils.
salmon, or white flowers. Small ones are called jonquils.
Daffodils.
Daffodils
Narcissus.
or narcissus, yes. Do we know any narcissus?
A few.
Hey, next question. Not a true lily. Fairly tall plants with large green leaves and red, orange, or yellow flowers.
What is a canna?
What's a canna? Very good. Next, favorite of florists for bridal bouquets. Georgia O'Keeffe liked them too.
Orchid.
Roses.
What are lilies?
What?
What was that last one?
Is it a peace lily?
Yes, favorite of florists for bridal bouquets. Georgia O'Keeffe liked them too.
I don't know. Georgia O'Keeffe painted irises. I don't know.
No, she painted mostly calla lilies.
Ah.
Yeah.
Ah.
She
I
did
thought
paint
those
a
were
few other
funeral
things,
flowers.
I did too.
but no, they're used for weddings very often. It's just that they don't use these other colors very often in weddings. They're almost always using the white ones.
Definitely funerals.
Okay, next question. All right, I don't know what kind of funerals you're going to, but okay, tall, elegant corm often used in funeral sprays comes in many different colors.
What is gladiolas?
What is a gladiola? You're right. Now that's a funeral flower.
Yeah.
I still love them though.
I love them.
I got them at the dollar
I love
store.
them to death.
Oh. Boo.
Boo. Okay. All right. Very large. We've moved on to grasses, by the way. Okay. Very large ornamental grass with plumes of white or pink.
What is
Pampas grass?
You know, what is pampas or pampas grass?
Very pompous.
Office grass.
Yeah, they're coming pink now too, so it's really cool. Okay, question number 2. Medium-sized ornamental grass with purple leaves.
Fountain grass.
Purple fountain grass. That's correct. By the way, if you grow ornamental grasses here, you have to give them a haircut at least. They do best getting a haircut once a year, but at least every 2 years, or they'll thin out and die on you. Okay, question number 3. Showy yellow bands and silvery white blooms. You might have to go on safari to find it.
Zebra grass?
Let's see if
Tiger
you're
grass?
right. You're correct. It's zebra grass.
I just made that up. I never heard of it.
You never heard of zebra grass?
No.
Can you see why they call it zebra grass?
Yes.
Yes,
Stripes.
I'm just playing the Jeopardy trick of figure it out from the clue.
All right. Well, you should go on and make yourself some money before he dies. Okay. Medium-sized grass with light feathery plumes of white or pink. It's a popular choice around the coastal bend.
I know what that is.
Lindheimer's muley.
No,
What is muley grass? You're right.
that doesn't
I'm only going to answer when I don't know if the class is going to answer.
All right. Tough prairie native with gray-green leaf blades that show fall color.
Is that the blue something?
Yes, it's little blue stem.
That's the one.
Very good. Okay, here is our Texas natives. It's the state flower of Texas.
Bluebonnet.
Bluebonnet.
The bluebonnet, you're correct. You probably couldn't paint a masterpiece with this red-orange beauty.
Indian paintbrush.
An Indian paintbrush. That's correct. Daisy like red, orange, and yellow. Beautiful flowers.
Indian blanket. Or
Garlardia.
Indian
All the
blanket or
time.
gaillardia. That's right.
Yeah.
They're just blanket flowers now, and the other one is just paintbrushes. We're getting rid of the cultural appropriation.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Next is this fall blooming native has long purple flowers. You probably wouldn't want to stick one of these in your cap.
Gay feather?
Indeed.
Yeah, somebody said it. It's a
What is gay
liatris,
feather?
commonly called a gay feather.
The actress.
Okay. This Texas native has beautiful cup-shaped pink, white, or blue flowers with blue-green foliage. It probably inspired an ice cream brand.
What is
Blue bonnets.
Bluebell.
I heard correctly.
Bluebell.
What is
Bluebells.
What is bluebell?
And it did inspire Bluebell ice cream.
Also known as prairie gentian. Also known as lasianthus. Also known
Lisianthus. Yeah.
This thing has more names, also known as Eustoma grandiflora.
Stop messing with our Texas bluebells, Beth. Don't mess with Texas bluebells. You're correct on all those, though. These are terrific cut flowers, by the way. They will last for more than a week as a cut flower.
And I've been trying to get them going. I had some started from seed, and
they're tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. I don't think they really like our climate down here very good.
They like it in the salt flats.
They like it in the bar ditches in East Texas. I can tell you that. They come up all over the place and bloom there. I would get in trouble for stopping the car on the side of the road in East Texas just to get out and look at the bluebells. Okay, a native.
What is poinsettia?
What is
Poinsettia?
Yeah, that's a poinsettia. We have native poinsettias as well, which can get as tall as your house. They don't have these huge bracts, though. They have smaller bracts. The flowers actually are inconspicuous, and in the center section, they're little yellow inconspicuous flowers. Okay, true lily that brightens up the Passover season and adorns churches everywhere.
Easter lily.
Easter lilies. Anybody grow Easter lilies here?
I do sometimes.
Yeah, they do actually fairly well here. You can get by with growing them without any problem.
My mother-in-law had a ton of them.
Okay, large bulb grown for its large showy flowers, usually at Christmas.
Amaryllis.
Amaryllis.
Amaryllis is correct. They actually do very well in the beds here. If you get one of them as a gift, don't hesitate to pot it into an outdoor pot or put it into the ground. They'll reproduce and do very well here.
I have quite a few of them.
St. Patrick's Day favorite, green leaves with small pink flowers.
What is shamrock?
Some people say shamrocks, but they're
Oxalis.
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 I don't know why the answer didn't show up. All right. These fragrant bulbs with small white flowers are usually sold in kits right alongside amaryllis at Christmas. Who knew they were related to daffodils?
Paper whites.
Paper white narcissus. That's correct.
There's a whole family of that group in all different colors that you could plant here, like as regular bulbs.
Yes, they are, and they do fairly well. Maybe the most recognizable herb of all, with small, pungent leaves that go great with all kinds of meats.
Rosemary.
Rosemary. And there's a lot of different kinds of rosemary now. If you're used to just the bush type, you ought to get out and look to see what all they got. There's a lot of different kinds of rosemaries. One of the problems we have with rosemary here, though, is sometimes we get too heavy rainfalls and they don't like sitting with wet feet. They'll die almost every time. So I generally will only put rosemary in a pot so that it drains even in heavy rainfall.
That's good to know. I'm going to put mine up on the porch for the next couple days.
Yeah, they don't like to sit with wet feet. Okay. Favorite of cooks everywhere, no spaghetti would be complete without it.
Basil.
What is oregano?
Oregano.
Oregano.
Basil.
I agree with the basil also, but we'll get to that.
Oregano is what spaghetti is known for, but I love basils also. Do y'all disagree?
For pizza.
Yes.
Okay.
Oregano's for pizza sauce.
Yeah. Beautiful leafy herb with green or purple leaves, often used in salads or dressings.
There's your basil.
There's your basil. You're right. There's a purple basil. There's also green basil.
No.
You should have done pesto.
Pesto. Okay. Baked potatoes and potato chips are both great with these chopped and added.
What are chives?
Chives.
I was going to say bacon.
Chives are.
Is there a bacon plant, Terry?
Bacon plant.
I don't think there's a bacon plant.
Darn.
Okay. Favorite for Tex-Mex cuisines, when the seed is collected, it's called coriander.
Cilantro.
Cilantro. When should you grow cilantro here?
Winter.
Plant it in the fall and have it produced through into the winter.
No.
No, who doesn't like it?
That's okay.
I know there's somebody out of our group that doesn't like it, but most people like it.
I love it.
You know, people who like it really should try popolo because it grows all through the summer.
What does?
Popolo.
All right.
Papaloquito.
Type that into the chat if you can.
Okay.
I don't like cilantro at all.
Oh, I can't believe you.
Oh, I can't find it.
The trouble with the popolo is getting the seeds. Where do you get the seeds?
There are a couple of suppliers online that you can search for. Just put popolo in there.
It's almost like catnip for me. I would almost roll in it and eat it.
I love it.
I love it too.
Whoever said bacon plant, you need to Google bacon seeds.
Okay. Here is your final Jeopardy question. This herb is mentioned in the second verse of Deep in the Heart of Texas.
Sage.
What is sage?
This sage. It's not your normal traditional sage, though. This one is most likely the plant that we call barometer bush or cenizo or Texas sage. So it's not your culinary sage.
Oh, so they weren't talking about sagebrush, like the stuff that's related to tarragon?
Yes, it could. It could have been sagebrush, but in Texas, more than likely, it was cenizo.
Okay.
If you think about what actually blooms on the sides of the roads and the sides of the hills and stuff here, it's more than likely some type of barometer bush or some type of cenizo.
Well, cenizo's less toxic than sagebrush, so that's a good thing.
All right. Any questions?
Kevin, all of the PowerPoints and handouts are loaded up to the VMS on the calendar for today's class. Click on the link and you'll be able to view and or download PowerPoints and or handouts.
Very good. All right. I'm at the end of my PowerPoint. So I had some websites that I was hoping it would take you to, but it didn't. So you might want to check those out in the handouts that Vince was just talking about. There's some better handouts talking about inflorescences and flower types and things like that. We have a little bit of time if anybody wants to discuss anything. Otherwise, I'm going to let you go early tonight.
Can I
I
ask
have
a
a
question
question.
about the plant still?
Sure. Let me.
I don't know who
Is it my turn?
I don't know. I just
Whoever
wanted
wants
to
to
know
go.
if the lab from Wednesday was put anywhere because I can't find it.
From last Wednesday,
Yeah, the one that we
it
missed.
it didn't occur yet.
Okay.
So until we have the chance to actually go out to the botanical gardens and wander through, I might slide it all the way to the very end and hope that maybe we can go to Westwood Park and actually go see the trees. I don't know if y'all would be okay with that. Hoping that maybe the coronavirus is far enough past that we could actually kind of carpool around out there and check or show up out there and take a walk. I don't know how many people are okay wandering around outside at this point versus, I know we don't want to gather in a classroom yet, but if y'all would like that, I'll kind of put it towards the end and maybe we'll pick a date and just show up at the park and wander around and look at the different trees that are out there.
That'd be great.
And we'll just make it up that way if y'all are okay with that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Renee.
So for the plant sale, we have to email somebody a list, right?
Gloria Van Zant.
Okay, because this gentleman in Aransas Pass gave me 24 nice plants out of his greenhouse. And it's like Turk's cap, and there's a lot of stuff that I don't even have myself. But he gave a lot of very nice, healthy plants. Okay, now what about cuttings? Can we sell cuttings? Can y'all sell cuttings or?
We won't sell the cuttings. I'll give you a general rule of thumb for the plant sale. It has to be in the same sort of shape that you would want to buy it if you were at the store. So if it's rooted and it's, I mean, we root a lot of things. I mean, Kathy does a lot of succulents and stuff, but will we take the cuttings and just put them out there? I don't think so.
I have like about 25 cuttings of yellow plumeria of Thornton
yes,
lemon.
you can sell that because that's a totally
I'm
different
trying
category.
to root them. I'm trying to root them, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. But I've got them in rainwater, so they might. If they don't root, I think I'm going to put perlite in a little bag on the end.
Well, people would buy those even just laying out on the table.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because they're Thornton lemon, and they actually came from the Thornton collection from the lady.
So. Yeah, people will buy plumerias just laying out on the table because they know how easy they are to root.
I think I have about 25 cuttings.
Okay.
I'll make a list and send it to that lady. Thank you.
That's the exception to the cuttings. Otherwise, the answer to that is no. If you have it rooted already and it's a nice old plant, then yes, you can put it in the plant sale. But we have a couple of people whose job is to kind of double check stuff and make sure that it's decent enough quality to ask the public to purchase it.
And do we just like come with all that stuff and we're going to unload them the day before or the day of?
They're fixing to send out some guidelines, I think probably in the next few weeks. So just look for those and they'll give you all the instructions on where to take them, where to drop them off, what times to drop them off and all that stuff.
In the past, we did it the day before.
The current restraint is they have school in the building, so we're going to be dropping them off at one of the committee members' houses, because then she and the other committee members can look it over and price them there over a course of a week, as opposed to trying doing it all within 2 or 3 hours the night before. So that's the current status on that.
That man donated 8 cranberry hibiscus, and the leaves are gorgeous.
Well, those are beautiful, yes.
Yeah, he donated 8 of them. They're nice, very nice.
I might want one of them for myself.
All right. Kathy, were you going to say something?
Volunteer for the plant sale.
People are going to be...
Go ahead, Beth.
The calling committee is going to be calling around. Now, do they have the intern list as well, Kevin?
I don't know the answer. That probably Vince has it. So
Yes,
Okay.
they have it.
Yes, they have the interns that they're supposed to be calling them to see if they can work at the plant sale.
And you're going to be asked to do one of 4 or 5 different roles, and what time slots?
Right, we're just getting their names, and I'm getting them to Gloria, and she's kind of plugging them in, and we're going to check with them, make sure it's okay with them.
So everybody's
Some
getting
people
called
said
twice?
that they would work all day. No, we're trying to do it all at one time.
Oh, okay, okay.
Who asked that question? Who asked that question?
I asked the question about how to volunteer for the plant sale, like during the week when you need.
Okay, who is it?
Donna.
it's Donna
Who is
Gonzalez.
this?
Donna Gonzalez.
Okay. Okay, you want to volunteer, Donna?
Yes.
Donna.
Oh, I think she's
Or
asking
how,
about like committee service.
No, I'm asking to work at the plant sale.
The easiest way, Donna, shoot me an email and I will direct it to the right people. Okay.
We're taking care of it.
Okay, or somebody may be giving you a call too. So
All right. Any other questions? Okay. So I'm going to get. Wait. Okay.
What we did was the people that are supposed to be calling, supposed to be telling them about the meeting, about the plant sale, and getting their birth date. So, Donna, has no one called you
Called me for what?
about the meeting tomorrow?
What meeting tomorrow?
Obviously not. Okay, I'll check on it when I get home.
We have
What time is the meeting tomorrow?
Linda, I can give her a call. I can give her a call.
We have the general session and the board meeting tomorrow, Donna. Vince will send it out and I'll make sure that I forwarded it to all of you, okay?
What time you send it out to people that are supposed to make phone calls?
Okay, we pass it down to the person that's supposed to be making the phone call to her.
Okay. All right, hold on a minute. An email went out earlier today to everybody, all members, including the interns, that gave all 3 of the sessions tomorrow. They're 3 separate sessions because we record them. And we maintain the board and the general membership meeting for 3 days online, and then we delete it. But the continuous education, Kevin will post that to YouTube so you can see it more than 3 days out. Okay, so you already have an email about it. All right.
All right. Very good.
Who's the email from?
Vince.
From
The
Vince.
No, it's not Vince because I already looked that up.
It's from First VP.
Oh, one VP?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
If you can't find it, let me know and I'll help you, okay?
No, I didn't know that this board and general membership meeting was for us.
Yes, you're more than welcome to attend them.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, Linda,
Oh.
Linda, I will send that list that I've got in the morning.
Okay, that's fine.
Why don't you
Okay,
tell them
any
that
other
you
questions?
send out a list, but that you've got people named that's supposed to be making phone calls?
We have people's names that are supposed to be making phone calls about the meeting, about the plant sale.
All right. So I'm going to give y'all a gift for Wednesday. I would rather do an in-person lab instead of trying to do another PowerPoint. I can't really find a way to do annuals, perennials, and do a PowerPoint. So would y'all be okay if we don't have lab on Wednesday?
That'd be fine.
Okay. And then if we need to make it up, we'll put it towards the end, just like the tree lab. Okay. Look,
Yes, sir.
Vince is
That's it.
crying. This is a pretty busy week, and I figured y'all would all appreciate having the day off. So,
Oh,
okay?
yeah. Day off is good.
All right. Thank y'all for tuning in tonight and putting up with me.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good one. And
Thank you, sir. Very well done.
all right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night.
Good night.